Good morning, everyone. Today, we begin our discussion of 21st century supply chains. This chapter introduces the basic logic of supply chain management and explains why supply chains are no longer simply about moving products from one place to another. In modern business, supply chains are strategic systems. They affect cost, customer service, speed, flexibility, risk, and ultimately competitive advantage. A company may have a good product, but if it cannot source materials, produce efficiently, deliver reliably, or respond to changing customer demand, it will struggle to compete. So, as we go through this chapter, I want you to think about supply chain management not only as an operational function, but also as a way firms create value. This chapter covers several major topics. We will begin by defining supply chain management. Then we will discuss supply chain value and key processes, customer service, business models, sourcing, manufacturing, planning, and scheduling. The key point is that supply chain management connects many business activities. It includes purchasing, production, transportation, warehousing, inventory, customer service, and coordination with external partners. In other words, supply chain management is not one isolated department. It is a cross-functional and cross-organizational system. Let us begin with a basic question. What is supply chain management? Supply chain management involves the integration of many parties, suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, retailers, service providers, and customers. A supply chain exists whenever products, services, information, and money move through a network of organizations. In this chapter, we will also discuss the integrated supply chain model, supply chain value proposition, responsiveness, push versus pull systems, and major industry disruptors. A useful way to think about supply chain management is this. It is the process of making sure the right product is available in the right quantity, at the right place, at the right time, and at the right cost. Supply chain management is a set of processes used to effectively and efficiently integrate suppliers, manufacturers, distribution centers, distributors, and retailers. There are several important phrases here. First, effectiveness and efficiency. Effectiveness means meeting customer needs. Efficiency means doing so with minimal waste and reasonable cost. Second, the definition emphasizes integration. The supply chain works best when different organizations and functions coordinate with one another. Third, the definition mentions minimizing system-wide costs. This is important. A decision that lowers costs for one department may increase costs for the entire supply chain. For example, purchasing may buy in large quantities to reduce unit cost, but that may increase inventory holding costs and create excess stock. Supply chain management asks us to look at the entire system, not just one activity. Supply chain management integrates supply and demand management. On the supply side, firms must manage suppliers, materials, production capacity, and transportation. On the demand side, firms must understand customer needs, sales patterns, service expectations, and market uncertainty. A strong supply chain aligns these two sides. It connects what customers want with what the company and its partners can deliver. The Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals defines supply chain management as including planning and management of sourcing, procurement, conversion, logistics, coordination, and collaboration with channel partners. This definition is useful because it highlights collaboration. A company does not operate alone. Suppliers, intermediaries, third-party logistics providers, and customers all influence supply chain performance. For example, a retailer's product availability depends not only on the retailer's warehouse, but also on supplier reliability, transportation lead time, demand forecasts, and inventory policies. Therefore, coordination across partners is essential. Major activities related to supply chain management and logistics include sourcing, procurement, manufacturing, integrated operations planning, transportation, inventory management, warehousing, customer service, returns, and repairs. Let us briefly distinguish supply chain management from logistics. Logistics usually focuses on the movement, storage, and flow of goods. Supply chain management is broader. It includes logistics, but also sourcing, production, supplier relationships, demand planning, and strategic coordination. So logistics is a major part of supply chain management, but supply chain management includes a wider set of decisions. The distinction between customer and consumer is important. A customer may purchase a product for further use in another process. For example, a manufacturer may buy components and use them in production. A retailer may buy products from a manufacturer and resell them. A consumer, on the other hand, is the final user of the product. For example, households consume food, appliances, and services. In supply chain management, we need to understand both. The immediate customer may be a distributor or retailer, but the final consumer ultimately drives demand. A supply chain that ignores the final consumer may produce the wrong products, in the wrong quantities, or at the wrong time. Supply chains create value in multiple ways. They can reduce operating costs by improving efficiency. They can increase revenue by improving product availability and service. They can improve fill rate, expand offerings, support customization, and help introduce new products. Supply chains also affect asset utilization, facilities, production capacity, transportation resources, and inventory all represent major investments. Better supply chain design allows companies to use these assets more effectively. For example, a company that improves forecasting and inventory placement may reduce stockouts while also lowering excess inventory. That is a direct example of supply chain value creation. Integrated supply chain management includes several participants: consumer, retailer, distributor, service provider, manufacturer, and material provider. The phrase "hurry up and wait" captures a common problem in supply chains. One part of the system may move quickly, but another part may create delays. A company may produce quickly, but products may wait in a warehouse. A supplier may ship quickly, but the manufacturer may not be ready to use the material. Firms can be fast alone. The goal is supply chain synchronization. This is a very important point. Individual speed is not enough. A supply chain must be synchronized. The right activities must occur at the right time across the entire network. Integrated supply chain management is the process of moving and positioning inventory to meet customer requirements at the lowest possible total cost to serve. Notice that the objective is not simply to minimize inventory. It is to position inventory appropriately. Some inventory is necessary to meet customer demand and protect against uncertainty. The challenge is to decide how much inventory to hold, where to hold it, and how quickly to replenish it. This involves time and place positioning, lowest total cost, asset minimization, connectivity, synergy, collaboration, and value delivery. In practice, this means that supply chain decisions must consider trade-offs. Faster delivery may require more inventory or more expensive transportation. Lower costs may reduce responsiveness. Supply chain managers must balance these competing objectives. A world-class supply chain operates in a synchronized environment. It compresses cycle time, delivers point-in-time performance, integrates order-to-delivery execution, maintains consistent data, and communicates with one informed voice. The phrase "one informed voice" is especially important. Customers do not want conflicting information from sales, customer service, logistics, and operations. They want accurate and consistent information. For example, if a customer asks when an order will arrive, the company should provide one reliable answer based on shared data. This requires information integration across the supply chain. There are three types of value: economic value, market value, and relevancy value. Economic value focuses on lowest total cost and efficiency. This is often associated with procurement or manufacturing strategy. Market value focuses on assortment, presentation, and effectiveness. This is often associated with marketing and distribution strategy. Relevancy value focuses on customization, segmentation, and positioning. This is where supply chain strategy becomes especially important. A modern supply chain must do more than reduce costs. It must also support customer relevance. Different customers may want different service levels, delivery speeds, product variations, or purchasing experiences. The supply chain value proposition means configuring the supply chain in a customer-relevant way while increasing quality, productivity, and operational excellence. There are four key elements here. Service excellence relates to effectiveness. Cost minimization and avoidance relate to efficiency. Value generation relates to relevancy. Continuous improvement relates to sustainability. This is a useful framework because it reminds us that supply chain performance is multidimensional. A supply chain that is cheap but unreliable is not good. A supply chain that is fast but too expensive may not be sustainable. The goal is to balance service, cost, value, and continuous improvement. The central idea is that supply chain design should match customer expectations. For example, a low-cost commodity product may require an efficient supply chain focused on cost control. A customized or fashion-oriented product may require a more responsive supply chain focused on speed and flexibility. Therefore, there is no single best supply chain for all situations. The best supply chain depends on the product, market, customer expectations, uncertainty, and competitive strategy. Responsiveness has become a major competitive advantage. In many industries, customers expect faster delivery, greater customization, and more accurate information. Think about online retail. Many customers now expect delivery in a few days or even the same day. This expectation changes the entire supply chain. Companies need better demand visibility, better inventory positioning, faster transportation, and more flexible fulfillment systems. Responsiveness means the ability to react quickly and effectively to demand changes, disruptions, and customer needs. The anticipatory business model is also called a push system. In a push system, products are produced or positioned based on forecasts before actual demand occurs. The advantage of a push system is that it can support efficiency and economies of scale. Companies can produce in larger batches and plan resources in advance. However, the risk is forecast error. If the forecast is wrong, inventory may be pushed to the wrong location or produced in the wrong quantity. This can lead to excess inventory, markdowns, obsolescence, or stockouts in the wrong markets. A push system works best when demand is relatively stable and predictable. The responsive business model is also called a pull system. A pull system seeks to reduce or eliminate reliance on forecasts. Instead, it responds more directly to actual demand. Pull systems often use joint planning with supply chain partners and technology to share demand information. A build-to-order model is one example. Rather than producing finished goods in advance, the company waits for customer orders and then completes production. The advantage is lower risk of producing unwanted inventory. The challenge is that the supply chain must be fast and flexible enough to respond to demand after it occurs. In practice, many companies use a hybrid model. They may push basic components or standard products while pulling final customization based on actual customer orders. Although responsiveness is valuable, it is not easy to implement. One barrier is the pressure on publicly held firms to deliver quarterly profits. This can motivate firms to push products to customers or channels in order to meet short-term sales targets. Another barrier is the need for collaboration. Responsive systems require trust, information sharing, and coordination among supply chain partners. These relationships take time to build. Responsiveness is not only a technology issue, it is also an organizational and relational issue. Supply chains face many types of risk. Compliance risks include supplier conduct, restricted materials, certifications, and audits. Performance risk includes delivery, quality, capacity, and operational reliability. Environmental event risk includes natural disasters, labor disruptions, geopolitical risks, trade barriers, pandemics, terrorism, and fires. There are also financial risks, such as bankruptcy, ownership changes, or payment problems. Market segment risks may come from related industries, packaging, or natural resources. The key lesson is that supply chain management must include risk management. A supply chain that is efficient under normal conditions may fail under disruption. Therefore, companies must consider resilience as well as efficiency. Globalization creates opportunities because demand often exceeds local supply. Companies can use strategic sourcing to match raw materials, components, manufacturers, and distributors across countries. Offshoring may allow companies to move manufacturing or distribution operations to countries with lower labor costs, favorable tax laws, or specialized capabilities. However, globalization also increases complexity. Longer distances, more partners, customs requirements, currency issues, political risk, and cultural differences all affect supply chain performance. So globalization can reduce costs and expand markets, but it also increases coordination challenges. Global logistics differs from domestic logistics in several important ways. First, the distance from order to delivery is often much longer. Longer distance increases lead time and uncertainty. Second, documentation requirements are more complex. International trade may require customs documents, certificates, invoices, bills of lading, and compliance records. Third, operations must deal with diversity in work practices and local environments. Infrastructure, labor practices, regulations, and transportation systems may vary across countries. Fourth, customer demand may differ across cultures. Products, packaging, service expectations, and delivery preferences may need to be adapted. Therefore, global supply chain management requires both operational expertise and international awareness. Several major disruptors are changing supply chains. Technology adoption is changing supply chains through autonomous vehicles, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, platform-based business models, 3D printing, big data, and alternative fuels. Consumer requirements are also changing. Customers increasingly want immediate availability, personalization, omnichannel shopping, and services that fit changing demographic needs. The key point is that supply chains must evolve. A supply chain designed for a traditional retail environment may not work well in an e-commerce or omnichannel environment. Similarly, artificial intelligence and real-time data may change forecasting, routing, inventory management, and customer service. Supply chain principles apply to many types of systems. A traditional product supply chain involves suppliers, manufacturers, distributors, and retailers. Promotional supply chains support special promotional events such as in-store displays. Bulk material supply chains move items such as grains, metals, and chemicals, often requiring economies of scale and specialized transportation. Supply chain logic can also apply beyond physical products. Talent can move through recruitment, training, development, and placement processes. The broader lesson is that supply chain thinking applies whenever resources must be sourced, transformed, moved, and delivered to meet demand. Other applications include business to consumer, recycling, resource construction, and recovery supply chains. Business to consumer supply chains are increasingly important because of online retail. Recycling supply chains handle returns, components, packaging, and reprocessing. Resource supply chains support information-based systems such as server farms and cloud services. Construction supply chains coordinate equipment, materials, permits, and sequencing. Recovery supply chains retrieve materials at the end of their useful life. These examples show that supply chain management is not limited to factories and warehouses. It also applies to service systems, digital infrastructure, sustainability, and reverse flows. Other important examples include humanitarian, global, durables, and agricultural commodity supply chains. Humanitarian supply chains support disaster recovery by bringing equipment, food, medical items, and reconstruction materials to affected areas. These supply chains are often difficult because demand is urgent, uncertain, and located in disrupted environments. Durable supply chains involve heavy equipment such as agricultural or construction machinery. These products may require specialized transportation and careful handling. Agricultural commodity supply chains must move products economically from farms to buyers. Because commodity prices may be set by the market, transportation costs can determine whether a farmer can profitably sell the product. Each type of supply chain has its own objectives and constraints. Additional applications include innovative military and clinical trial supply chains. Innovative supply chains are designed to introduce new products quickly. They are often responsive because timing is critical. For example, event-related products must be available when the event occurs. Military supply chains must operate in demanding environments and support many product categories, including food, medical supplies, and equipment. Clinical trial supply chains require precise control of dosage, ingredients, timing, and documentation. Errors can have serious consequences. These examples reinforce the idea that supply chain design must match the mission. Some supply chains emphasize cost, others emphasize speed, precision, reliability, or resilience. To summarize, integrated management is critical to continuous process improvement. Cross-enterprise integration can improve competitive advantage. Dynamic supply chain collaboration can increase market share and improve operating efficiency. Finally, supply chain structure and strategy determine the operating framework for logistical requirements. The main takeaway from this chapter is that supply chain management is not merely a back-office function. It is a strategic capability. It determines how firms serve customers, manage costs, respond to uncertainty, and compete in changing markets. As you continue through this course, keep asking 3 questions. First, what does the customer value? Second, what supply chain structure is needed to deliver that value? Third, what trade-offs must be managed among cost, service, speed, flexibility, and risk? Those questions will guide many of the topics we will study in the rest of the course.